So we're going to talk a little bit about how to DK tonight, and hopefully with the information that we'll impart tonight, you'll be a little bit better prepared to get the most out of your Dirty Kanza experience this year. So what is Dirty Kanza? Well, in its simplest form, Dirty Kanza is an ultra-endurance bicycle challenge through the Flint Hills of East Central Kansas. It's a very unique area, one of only 2 remaining tracts of natural tallgrass prairie in the entire world. The Flint Hills have been called the easternmost part of the Great Far West, and we feel it's a perfect place for a bicycle challenge. Last year, we started a new tagline to Dirty Kanza. If you want to scroll to the next slide, find your limit. And when we first came out with this tagline or slogan, I think some people tended to focus on the third word there, limit. But the emphasis is actually on the word find. We all have limits, and we all have developed these notions in our mind of what we're capable of and what we're not capable of. And quite frankly, we think they're a bunch of bunk. We don't think that any of us have even begun to realize what our true limits are. And so it is our hope that Dirty Kanza will be your stage from which you can set out on your own personal journey to find just exactly where your limits reside. And we firmly believe that if you'll do that, you're going to discover that your limits are a lot further down that gravel road than you think they are. So that's why we do what we do, and that's why we love doing it. A few quick facts about Dirty Kanza. Like Leland alluded to earlier, I am one of 2 original co-founders of Dirty Kanza. My good friend Joel Dyke and I started it in 2006. We literally just started Dirty Kanza for kicks and grins. We thought it'd be kind of fun to see if we could get a few people to go out and ride through the Flint Hills with us. In 2006, we had no idea how many people would show up, and we had 34 people show up, and we thought that was a raging success. So we decided to do it again. In 2013, we added the 100-mile half pint and the 50-mile DK light. They were intended to be stepping stones to the 200. And we think that in large part that's the role they serve. There's some people who will do the 50 and will never do more than that, and that's fine. We think that's really great. Likewise for the 100. Some people do the 100, and that's where they want to be, and that's just fine. But the original intention was that they would serve as stepping stones for the 200. Dirty Kanza has drawn riders from nearly every U.S. state and from literally all over the world. So we've gone from a little old group ride to an international event. And as you can see there, we've grown from a one-day event to actually an entire weekend of activities. The next slide will give us a little glimpse at the growth that we've seen over the past 12 years. Like I mentioned earlier, in 2006 we had 34 riders. In 2017 we'll have over 2,300 people just like you out there on Commercial Street lining up. I don't get tired of looking at that picture. That's just amazing to me to think that that's where we've gone, or that's where we've gotten to. It's a truly amazing sight. In 2014, as a company, Dirty Kanza is actually owned by Dirty Kanza Promotions. We are an actual LLC. And we have goals and objectives, just like most any other company will have. In 2014, we decided to get very intentional about where we wanted to go and what we wanted to become. And we established a vision statement and a mission statement, and I want to share with you our vision statement for Dirty Kanza Promotions. Our vision is that Emporia, Kansas, and the surrounding Flint Hills region will become nationally recognized as a preferred outdoor adventure vacation destination. That's pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. For years and years and years, Kansas was a flyover or a drive-through state. It's a stretch that people endured on their way to somewhere else. And as most of you know, on virtually any given weekend, you can walk up and down Commercial Street and you'll see cars with out-of-state license plates and bike racks on them. Or you'll go out into the Flint Hills and you'll see cars parked along the road. People have driven here to ride their bikes, and we think that's a pretty amazing thing. The impact that all of that has had is we've had a tremendous impact on tourism in the state of Kansas. In fact, in 2015, the governor recognized us with his annual tourism award, and we were very, very fortunate to receive that recognition. By most accounts, most estimates, we impact the local economy by over $3 million, and I've been told that that's a very conservative figure. So we're very, very proud of that, and we thank you for all of your support. We wouldn't have been able to do that without all of you in this room and everyone else who's watching. We've also been able to have a charitable impact. Last year, we raised over $22,000 for local charities, and we also provide scholarships for ESU students. A lot of you are aware of the fact that long ago we outgrew the town's ability to house our riders in hotels, and we went to ESU with a proposal for them to open their dorms to house riders. $10 of every dorm room that they sell comes back to us, and we pool that money, and every penny of it goes back to the university in the form of Dirty Kanza scholarships. And in addition to that, Leland works very, very hard and does an extremely great job working with interns from ESU. Students are given internships and do some amazing work for us, and we're able to give them real-world learning opportunities and prepare them for graduation. So the takeaway I'd like for all of you to have from that is that your support of Dirty Kanza, you're a part of that, and I hope you feel as proud of that as we do. So if I were to ask you, what is the Dirty Kanza Challenge? What would some of you say? What? Say again? Don't die. Don't die? What is the Dirty Kanza Challenge? Oftentimes I get an answer like, well, it's to ride 100 miles, or it's to ride 200 miles, or it's to ride 50 miles. The distance is actually only a very small part of the Dirty Kanza Challenge. It's one thing to ride 100 miles or 200 miles, but it's quite another to do it self-supported. And that's part of the Dirty Kanza Challenge, is to ride whatever distance you decide to tackle, whether it's 25, 50, 100, or 200. The challenge is to do that self-supported or relatively self-supported. Over the years, that's tweaked a little bit. When Dirty Kanza first started as a 200-mile event only, it was totally self-supported. When you left the starting line, you were not allowed any support whatsoever other than what you could find at a convenience store that you passed by. We've changed that a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a moment. But for the most part, you are self-supported. At least between checkpoint to checkpoint, you are out there on your own. And in addition to that, you've got to cover the distance within a strict time allowance. There are cutoff times for reaching each checkpoint. So the challenge is not only to ride the distance, but it's to do it on your own power and also within the time allowance. Now a little bit more about support and logistics and checkpoints. Checkpoints will occur approximately every 50 miles. So if you're doing the 100-mile challenge, you'll have one checkpoint at approximately your halfway point. If you're doing the 200-mile distance, you'll have 3 checkpoints. The first one will come at about mile 50. Again, at about your halfway point, 100 miles, give or take a few. And then you'll have your final checkpoint at around mile 150. You need to be familiar with the distance to the next checkpoint because you can receive assistance from your support crew within the checkpoint. But when you leave the checkpoint, you are on your own. And it's up to you to get to the next checkpoint. You need to be prepared to cover that distance on your own. Some of you, probably most of you are very aware we had a disqualification last year, and that is why. This person had a personal support crew out on course and was receiving hand-ups from that personal support crew. And that's not allowed. That's not the challenge. The challenge isn't to go as fast as you can, by any means available. The challenge is to, like we said, is to do it on your own within the rules. Cutoff times will be established for reaching checkpoints. These cutoff times are based on a 10-mile-an-hour average. That includes your stops. Okay, so if you spend an hour in a checkpoint, you need to factor that in for when you have to reach the next checkpoint. It's a average of 10 miles an hour from the moment the gun goes off at the starting line. So if you don't reach a checkpoint before that cutoff time, you won't be allowed to continue. We also are going to establish cutoff times for leaving the checkpoints because we've had instances where people have spent so much time in a checkpoint that there's no way they can leave that checkpoint and make it out or make it to the next checkpoint before that cutoff time. The problem that creates is we have course sweeps and course support people out there. Obviously, they need to stay behind the last rider. And if the last rider is still in the checkpoint, they can't go out there and serve all the other riders that are already out there. So that's why we feel like we need to establish these cutoff times to leave the checkpoint. Cutoff times are all about rider safety. If you've gotten to where you're so worn out that you can't maintain 10 miles an hour, it's not in your best interest to go out for another 50 miles. So that's why we have the cutoff times, and that's why we enforce them like we do. Another thing that I want to make everyone aware of with regards to checkpoints is the parking lots at the checkpoints will be color-coded. And if you've done Dirty Kanza before, you're probably familiar with this. If you haven't, it might seem a little odd, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about that. Envision, if you will, you're in a 200-mile event and you arrive into Madison for checkpoint 1. There's 650 support crew cars in the parking lot of the high school. How are you going to find your car quickly? Okay, so what we've tried to do is we've tried to take your search for this big massive space. We've just tried to narrow your search. So we've color-coded the parking lot in 5 different colors, red, yellow, blue, green, and orange. When you go through rider sign-in on Friday to receive your race packet, you'll receive a sticker to go on your windshield of your car or on the dash. And it's just by random, okay? We have these colored stickers and they're all just random. It doesn't make any difference what color you are. The only thing is you just need to remember what color you are. There's no advantage to being blue or no disadvantage to being red. But if you know that there's a blue sticker in the windshield of your car, when you get to the checkpoint, then you just need to, and there will be people there to direct you, but you need to know that you need to go to the blue section. And so we've just narrowed your search into 1/5 of what it would have been without being color coded. So you're still gonna have to find your support crew, but your search should be a lot easier, okay? Now the question always comes up, well, what if we have one support crew serving 5 people? You all 5 got a different color? Pick a color, throw the other 4 stickers away. It doesn't make any difference. Just pick a color, make sure that all 5 riders in your group know what color to look for. Okay. Before we go to the Rider's Bible, let's talk a little bit about how you're going to navigate from the starting line to a checkpoint, or how you'll navigate from checkpoint to checkpoint. It used to be that we would mark the entire course. So in a 200-mile course, there were approximately 200 corners. There's a turn on average, about every mile. The problem we ran into was we could mark every single corner. And we knew on Friday, the day before the race, that all those corners were marked. We knew because we put them up. But how many people here can remember back to Friday nights when you were in high school? What'd you do on Friday nights? You drove around out in the country drinking beer, didn't you? And if you saw some markers on the corner that weren't there the Friday before, you were kind of curious about them, and you just might think it's kind of fun to pull one down or maybe move one. And so what we found out was, like I say, we could mark every single corner, and it only took one corner and everybody was lost, because that's what they were looking for, the markers. So we quit marking the course, and we went to maps and cue sheets. This is what a map will look like. These will be available on our website about a week and a half, 2 weeks before the event. And we'll send everybody an email to let them know when they are available. And you can go online and you can print these off. They'll print off onto just a regular 11 by 8.5 sheet of paper. You can fold those up, put them in a Ziploc bag so they don't get sweaty in your jersey pocket. And you can follow the map. And this is part of the challenge. Okay, it's another part of the Dirty Kanza challenge that I left out earlier. Is to navigate the route. And so you can see the route there in red, and you can see the red letters there are the mile markers. So you'll know that at mile 8, you've got to turn left onto Road E, and mile, I can't read it from here, mile 25.8, you're going to make a left turn onto Camp Creek Road, and vice versa. You'll receive your first map at Rider Sign-In on Friday. Actually, you'll receive all of them. Yeah, I got sidetracked. That's the way we used to do it. We used to pass out the maps at checkpoints. But you're gonna have the ability to print all the maps before you even arrive to Dirty Kanza. And we recognize that some people are map readers and some people are not. So in addition to maps, we have what we call cue sheets. And Leland's going to put up here an example of a cue sheet. Okay, now these print out also on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but they're set up in quadrants. So you can fold these in half and then in half again, and they slide right into a sandwich-sized Ziploc bag, real nice. You can mount these on your handlebars, and they're just a step-by-step instruction on how to navigate the course. The first column is mile. The second column is an icon telling you if you're going to go straight, go right, or go left. And then the final column is actual printed out instruction on what you're going to do when you get to that intersection. So it forces you to pay attention to where you are in relationship to your map or your cue sheet. I am a map reader, but I actually prefer to navigate by the cue sheet. And the reason, and that's just a personal thing, but the reason I like navigating by cue sheet is it forces me to stay engaged as in relationship to where I am. Okay, and it helps keep me from daydreaming and losing track of where I am. If I'm constantly looking at that and I know, okay, my next step is to do such and such. So you might play around with maps and cue sheets and try to figure out which you prefer so that on race day you have a little bit better understanding of how you're going to best navigate the course. How many people have read the Dirty Kanza Rider's Bible? Okay, I see a lot of hands, but I see some hands that didn't go up. There at the bottom of that slide, see the little box, little checkoff box? You may not realize it, but when you registered for Dirty Kanza, you checked the checkoff box. Now, I know a lot of you were probably going through it as fast as you could to get in, but you actually promised us that you were going to print that off and you were going to read it. The reason we do that is we feel that there's a lot of valuable information in that document. Everything that we're going to share tonight is in there, plus. So I would encourage everybody, maybe even this evening when you get home, log on to dirtykanza.com. Under the Info tab, you can access this document and you can print it off and read it. And read it multiple times. There's a lot of great information in there. It has been updated since last year, so there's some information in there that wasn't in there last year. So even if you read it last year, please go on there, print that off, and become very, very familiar with what is in there. Next to last slide, and this one is, I don't know if it's the most important bit of information here, but it's one that's closest to my heart. The Flint Hills are an incredible place to be able to go play. We're very, very fortunate to live where we do and to have access to the Flint Hills. But the thing I'd like to encourage everybody to think about is when we're out there, we're playing in someone else's front yard. Okay? This picture was taken in 2015, the muddy year. Okay? It was a result of 2015 that we added rule number 16 to the Rider's Bible. Okay? We just about didn't have a 2016 Dirty Kanza because of what you see in this picture. Okay, now if you look real close, you'll see to our right, or to the rider's left of the road, there's about 4 or 5 riders out there in the grass. Okay, that's private property. And it's a little hard to see in this picture, but that's on a hillside. So the Flint Hills is actually a very delicate ecosystem. And when grass on a hillside is worn down, that leads to erosion. If that hillside erodes, the grass is gone, and now the rancher can't graze his cattle there because his grass is gone. So that's why we enacted rule number 16. I'll leave it up to you guys to all read it, because you're going to go home tonight, you're going to print off your Writer's Bible, and you're going to read that rule. Okay? But in a nutshell, if there's fences on the side of the road, you stay between the fences. There's another picture I didn't put up there, but we actually have pictures of riders who have climbed over barbed wire fences and were walking across the pasture. There were riders that were cutting across the pasture to knock about a half a mile off the course. And then I actually received a phone call from this landowner on Monday, and he made me go out there and see this hillside. And like I say, we just about didn't have a Dirty Kanza the following year because of this. So be aware of the fact that you are playing in someone else's front yard, and please act accordingly and show these ranchers. You know, we've come a long, long way in the last few years in our relationships with the ranchers. And I would be willing to guess that most of you have noticed the difference when you're out there riding. They actually wave at you now and actually smile at you now. They didn't used to do that. We've been able to show them that we do appreciate being out there and we do respect them. But when something like that happens, it hurts our cause greatly. So enough on that. So to wrap this all up, or wrap up my portion, what do people say about Dirty Kanza? These are just 3 of the comments that we've collected over the years. And I won't read them all there. You can read those. They're on our website. But we're very humbled by these kinds of comments. They're the types of things that keep us going when we're working long hours trying to get this thing organized, and we really appreciate these kinds of comments, and they just I think speak volumes to not only the job that my staff has done every year to put this on, but they speak volumes to the community of Emporia and the way it supports this event, and what we've been able to become for the cycling industry. So we appreciate all that support.